Did you see me rub my tits?
I did. But we are back. Friday the 13th, part 2.
Part 2.
Joining me again
Part 2.
is Paul from Twin Flicks.
Hey, guys.
I want to start this episode off same way I did the first one, with my out of context rundown by a first-time watcher. So bear with me. I'm going to go through this. This is for part 2.
Because you're a virgin.
I am a
Friday
virgin
13th
to
watcher.
Friday the 13th. Sorry, mother. All right. One cat jumped through the window. One head in the fridge. You're all damned. One tow truck chase. In God's country, the prank. One slingshot to the butt. One middle finger. 2 boobs. One skinny dipper. One country hoedown. One kiss pinball machine. One joint. Let's see. 2 spears in bed. One car that won't start. One kick to the balls. One mouse assist.
Mouse assist?
And Muffin lives.
What was it?
Mouse assist. So
No,
what happened,
you're saying-
I think Jason gets an assist near the end. Can you hear me?
Oh. Yeah. I wanted to talk about that too because
Yeah. Because near the end of the film, this mouse helps Jason. That's the assist.
are you talking about with the P?
Yeah. So Paul, what was your initial thoughts at rewatching it now in 2023?
What's funny is that my brother Simon and I actually did a whole marathon like last year, where we just watched it all over a weekend, and so it's been a year since I've actually watched them.
Oh, that's awesome.
And what's funny is that it's like, I've been watching these movies since, like I said in the first video, since I was 14, 15 years old, but they're so simple. It's just meat and potatoes type of movie that they all start blending together. And so you're thinking, now, is this the one that has this in it? I can't remember.
Right.
So it's like, I always have to go back and refresh my memory, especially with these videos that we're doing.
The thing that I really stood out to me was it's pretty much an exact copy of the first one. They're really trying to just duplicate the same thing, same vibe, same way people are killed. You have the horny campers go to this forbidden area, Camp Crystal Lake, Camp Blood. And there was one thing that really upset me in this film.
Oh, really?
It was, because, okay, I had a thing for Ralph. He was the old guy that was the warning guy, Oh,
okay.
I loved that character in the first one. I just thought he was hilarious. And he gets killed in this one for he finally gets caught. Like Jason's like pretty much like shut up and like straps him around the neck against a tree. And so I was like, no. And then the second thing that upset me,
you had a soft spot for Ralph, huh?
Yeah, the second thing that upset me was Muffin like allegedly being gutted. But then at the end, Muffin lives, the cat.
Yeah.
I was like, Jason, I was rooting for you, but now you're like killing animals. So I was like,
which was a reshoot for that reason.
Oh, was it?
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. That makes sense because I was like,
oh, we gotta have Muffin live.
Oh gosh, yeah, that was like an experience. So I was wondering too if that was like 2 different cats or it was still Muffin the whole time.
Yeah. So let me do my rundown of the totals, my version.
Go ahead.
We're doing 2 versions here, and then get into what I think. So grand totals, I've got it all written down here. So we got 11 dead bodies, ice pick through the head, claw hammer through the head, cleaver through the head, 1 chain strangulation, machete to the throat, spear gun, not one, but 2 bodies. Because this is part 2. You got 2 bodies. Machete through the shoulder, pickaxe to the leg, gratuitous POV shots, because those are throughout the entire movies. And I don't think there was any nudity in this one. Do you remember?
There was 2 boobs, the skinny dipping scene.
Was there? Oh yeah, you said that previously. Okay, 2 boobs, same as the first movie. I think they only had 2 boobs, which was a fail. I mean, come on. But yeah, I told you this earlier today. I said this movie has some major hotness going on with the girl in the booty shorts and the crop top that's up to her breast. I mean, and I always forget that she's in this movie, and every time I watch, I'm like,
oh man, I have to say, yeah, not only is it a great scenery, but now we have like sexy campers in this one, and it just made it a lot easier to watch. And the slingshot to the butt part made me crack up so hard, man. It was great. And the tow truck chase was pretty funny. That prank that they did.
So what's funny is that this takes place. For some reason, I always thought that part 1 and 2 and 3 all happened over the same weekend, and I always thought that for some reason. But even in the movie, it says 5 years. Yeah. 5 years earlier, so it takes place 5 years apart from the first one. But it was released only a year apart from the first one,
right?
And they had to. I understand why sequels sometimes they have to kind of rehash what happened in a previous film, but this one went on way too long. like it just dragged on, and it made it more like, because it starts off with her in the house and she's on the bed sleeping, and so it does like a dream wave. Yeah. And so you think at first, I don't know about you, but when I remember when I first saw this, I'm thinking, okay, so is she just dreaming all this? Is she crazy?
See, I was thinking, is this the same actress? That's what I thought.
Yeah, because it is the same actress.
Yeah, I was like, this okay. She looked a little different to me. I don't know why, but
well, it's her haircut and those awful green overalls.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about the actress too is that, was the character named Alice? I can never remember characters' names.
Sounds right.
But yeah, what's interesting too is that actress, I guess for the sequels, she wanted more money, and her agents requested more money, and they couldn't afford it. I mean, these movies cost nothing to make. They couldn't afford to give her what she wanted. And so the agents, I guess, said, okay, well, then she's not in the movie. And so originally she was supposed to be throughout the entire film. Instead, because they couldn't afford to keep her, they killed her off in the beginning.
Yeah.
And I believe that's our first kill. It was an ice pick
to the head.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, what's funny is that basically it's showing Jason walking up to her house to kill her. So I guess he's been spending 5 years trying to find out where she is.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Like you said, continuity's out the window. You warned me on this one, and part 2 has proven that it's just out the window for sure.
Yeah. And so part 1 ends with this skinny little, 11-year-old kid, zombified kid jumping out of the water.
Yeah.
And then part 2, he's like a full grown guy.
He's got a growth spurt.
Major growth spurt over 5 years. And how did he get his mom's head in her refrigerator?
Yeah.
That didn't make any sense.
Not only is it in the refrigerator, like it's pretty well preserved, which we find out
5 years, yeah.
And that thing has a smell. I just can't imagine.
What's funny too, what I love too, I've always loved this too, is after he kills Alice, then it shows the close-up shot of the kettle boiling on the stove, and he's so polite to take it off the stove so it stopped so it stopped making the noise. I'm like, well, that's nice of him. But he leaves the stove on. So,
it's true. That's nice.
He didn't go all the way.
But there's one character that I remember the most, and I think it's because it shares a name with you, and that is Paul. Paul is, I guess he's the camp counselor or one of
Yeah.
the, I don't know, he looks like a 40-year-old man in this movie, and he's basically a denier. He doesn't believe the Jason stories, and he even tells one and scares everybody as a prank. But throughout
Because
the whole movie, he's a denier.
he's the guy that he's telling the camps around the
Yeah.
campfire, right?
Yeah.
Telling it. And he's like, oh, it didn't really happen.
Yeah.
It's just a story.
So I thought of you. And so he's
Okay.
always in denial.
It's not really happening.
He has a weird arc though. At one point I thought he was dead. So I wrote that down as like my 11th kill. And then I think I wrote later, Paul shows up at Jason's. He's not dead. Like out of the blue for the final confrontation. He gets in between them, and I was like, okay, so Paul survives. I was just like, this is a crazy arc.
Or does he?
Again,
that's something I was going to bring up too, is because I don't know if you've ever seen, well, probably not since you've never seen his movies, but the 4-hour documentary on Friday the 13th. Okay. Yeah, after we watch these movies, you got to watch that. Okay. Because really in depth, 4-hour. It's kind of like those In Search of Darkness.
Oh, okay. Really
documentaries. Detailed. So it really goes into it. And so in there, they had an interview with the director, Steve Miner, and he said, and they brought that up, and he said, that is the biggest, because it's ambiguous exactly what happens to him. And they said that's the biggest unanswered, most confusing ending of the entire franchise. And he basically said, we just didn't know how to end it. We didn't know what to do with him. Basically what they're saying.
Yeah, that was definitely quite a twist. I was like, okay, Paul's still alive. That doesn't make any sense. But like I said, they never really showed him dead.
Now, when I first saw it, I thought that maybe since Paul survived, that he was in on it with Jason somehow. That's what cool. When I first saw this, I thought that, but no,
that would have been cool.
No, it's not that type of movie. One other thing I want to bring out is, setup and payoff.
Right.
So in this movie, they show a girl using a chainsaw, and then she just puts it away in the closet. And nothing ever happens of it. And I every time I see this movie, I'm always thinking, why are you not using? You set up the chainsaw. Why are you not using the chainsaw later in the movie?
I think I wrote down lame chainsaw. Yeah, anticlimactic chainsaw fight, because she does turn it on and just like rubs him with it, or I don't know. It's just really lame.
Yeah, you don't really do anything with it. I was wondering when I was watching it last night. I was wondering maybe it has to do with Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that they didn't want it too, because everybody complained about when the first one came out how it's just a carbon copy of Halloween. So maybe they didn't want people to say that with the second one. Oh, this is just a ripoff of Texas Chainsaw. I don't know.
But you kind of get that vibe with Jason's lair, his house, and then the tribute to Mother, which is her head with the candles around. I mean, that screamed to me Texas Chainsaw Massacre, having the creepy ancestor.
Yeah.
I guess, because you had Grandpa and Texas Chainsaw. But why even have the chainsaw then if they're not going to use it? I agree with you.
The only thing I can think of is because these movies were they weren't really scripted out. It was just kind of like they made it on the fly. They made
one take.
A lot of and so all I can think of is maybe they thought we're going to use this later on in the movie, and then they realized they changed their mind or realized it's going to feel too much like a Texas Chainsaw ripoff or something. And so they changed their mind on it. That's the only thing I can think of. Otherwise, why have it? And because they prominently showed the chainsaw. They show a close up of the chainsaw. They show her walking around with the chainsaw. She knows how to use it and put it, and they show her put it away in the closet. So obviously it was a setup for something, but I guess they decided to not do it.
Now I wonder too if Part 2 and Part 1 have both sort of set this template where you have these annoying teenagers who provide a little bit of setup on how they're going to die, and then the audience, I felt anyway, I wanted Jason to kill them because they were annoying. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if that's intentional or if it's just happened that way.
I think it depends on the teenager.
Yeah.
Because you look at the teenagers that survive and they're not annoying.
That's true.
So
That's true.
yeah, I think it's intentional because they don't want you to feel sorry for these teenagers.
Right.
That would ruin the fun of the movie.
Yeah.
So I would assume so. Now, even though I don't think this is better than the first film, I do think the first movie is better. Honestly, I do think that it's better directed because, and not certain scenes are better directed. I think is Steve Miner was a film director, and he had a lot of experience as directing movies and TV shows. Sean S. Cunningham was a producer.
Okay.
And so when you look at the two side by side, you can see that, yeah, this is an actual director directing this movie, and that was a producer directing the movie.
I like the way that he didn't show Jason. He showed parts of Jason. So I liked that a lot.
Like his leg or the side of his arm while he's walking. And I don't know if you're familiar with Steve Miner as a director.
I'm not.
But he went on to direct some big movies. He directed Forever Young with Mel Gibson.
Okay, that's a good movie.
Yeah, I love that movie. He's gone on to direct he directed Part 3, then he went on to direct a couple other horror movies, and then he went on to do some bigger movies. And then I think he's just doing TV work now. But so yeah,
and he started with Part 2. That was his first feature debut, probably.
I think it was. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it was. I think he did some TV work before that, so he had experience directing.
It's interesting. We talked about it last video about genre filmmaking, and a lot of these people start in horror. I've noticed, and they kind of work their way out of horror.
It's either horror or pornography.
Yeah,
because Steven Spielberg, his first movie was Dune. His first movie was Duel, and Duel is a horror movie.
Yep, it is.
And then Jaws. He did Sugarland Express in between that, but still Jaws. And then a cinematographer turned director, Barry Sonnenfeld. He started in softcore porn.
And I think Wes Craven as well, I believe.
Yeah. And Sean S. Cunningham, before he did Friday the 13th and worked with Wes Craven, he was producing porn. So
yeah.
I mean, filmmaking's not easy no matter what genre it is. But I think that the main reason people gravitate towards horror as a first film is because it's funner to do. And if you make a mistake, you can kind of use that mistake in with the movie.
That's true. Just go with it.
Yeah. Because if it's a drama or an action scene and you make a mistake, depending on what's going on, you have to refilm it so that it matches continuity with the movie. Horror, it doesn't really matter. I mean, unless you're doing some kind of like highbrow intellectual horror. And
there's a huge horror crowd too. I think people like your movie's going to get seen probably if it's horror. It seems like, especially nowadays. But and back to the movie. Did you have a favorite kill? One that stood out for you?
Oh, the when they're in bed together and he spears him through. That's the best kill of the whole movie.
I agree. Yep, that was mine.
And just like with Kevin Bacon, where I wasn't sure how long that arrowhead is that he stuck through the bed. How long is that spear that he was able to go through two bodies and the bed? But it's Jason. I mean, come on. I thought it was funny though. The policeman chasing Jason through the woods.
Yeah, I know.
They tried to. It's like you could tell they tried so hard to make that suspenseful with the music, with the cuts, but man, that dragged on so long.
Yeah, again, the score is amazing again, and I really don't think it elevates the material for whatever how high it elevates it. I'm not sure, but it
elevates it.
It helps it. It helps it a lot. But
if it was, I mean, if they didn't have that score, I don't think it would have worked.
No,
nearly as good. Anyway, before I continue, do you have more?
I don't. No, go ahead.
Okay,
I'm actually done with my notes. So if there's anything else you want to add, go ahead.
I've got like 7 pages worth of notes. No, just kidding. I did. I'm always the type of guy, because we're filmmakers, we love film, and so I don't like just talking solely about the movie, especially these type of movies, because we'd be done in 10 minutes.
I know.
Um,
Yeah, it's true.
I do like talking about the filmmaking aspect and what works, what didn't. And the thing is with Jason, I always felt this even when I was younger and watched this, and this goes with part 3 as well. I don't think they knew what to do with him. They didn't know really how to use him. They didn't really know what to do with him. And so I think that's why some of the kills are just kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
And the POV shot, all the POV shots, you don't want to see Jason's face because he's supposed to be kind of like a faceless killer. But still, he's just kind of just wandering around the woods, walking around the woods. And
there's a part of that gets boring.
Exactly. And so I think they weren't sure what to do with him. We had this character, people like him, but what do we do with him? And I think that also may have to do with Steve Miner as more, even though he directed horror, he was also more of a director. And so maybe he just was like, well, I don't know. I don't know what to do here. And I keep saying this to you, I know, it sounds like a broken record, but until part 4, that's when they knew what they're,
Yeah, even today, doing. You were like, did you watch part 4 yet?
Yeah. I'm actually, honestly, in all honesty, I didn't really care about rewatching 1, 2, and 3 again. So I was like, okay, let's just get through this because I want to see part 4.
I see why, though. I mean, part 2 is not very good, especially compared to the first one.
Yeah.
It's just more of the same. The thing that saves it is the attractive women, the score, the scenery, and having I don't know what they call that, the pillow or the whatever he was wearing on his head.
Like a sack.
A sack on it, yeah. A sack on his head with like one eye or whatever. It was a little scary. I mean, not really, but
it's scary at first, I guess, because there's that shot where he's in the distance walking, and it's kind of scary, but then it's not.
Yeah, exactly.
It dies down really quick. And then we'll get into why. I mean, that's why they changed it in part 3. Also, it was interesting too in that documentary that I told you about. They brought it to that Jason. This is the only movie where Jason was played by 3 different people. And the very beginning, the opening shot where he's walking down the street and going into the house, it was actually played by the costume designer who was a woman.
Wow.
And
nice.
And so, and then the rest of the movie was played by 2 stuntmen. And so when you see that, you can definitely see Jason walks up and he's got these thin legs, and he doesn't have the build of a bulky body type. And so, yeah, when you have it in your head, when you know that information, you see that, you're like, oh yeah, that's not Jason. That's not a guy at all. That's a girl. I just one more thing I'll bring up, and then we can go on from there.
Okay.
And that is with the actress who plays Jenny. She hated horror movies. One of those actors that hated horror movies, but all she did was horror movies. And I think this was the last horror movie she did after this one. And so at the ending, when Jason crashes through the window and grabs her, her reaction was real. And they kept it in. And she's in the documentary, she talks about it where she says, I remember because I was anticipating the stuntman jumping through the window, grabbing me, but I was so scared of that happening that the entire reaction was real, and they kept it in the movie.
That's awesome. You have to. I'm sure it was a genuine reaction. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that's what made that scene work better. If she, maybe if she tried to act scared, it wouldn't have been as great. But yeah, that's really all the notes I had. Overall, I mean, it's kind of like, would I recommend it? It kind of goes back to, I mean, it's like, I want to say no, but then I say yes at the same time. you don't need. I guess you don't need to watch it because you can go from part 1 and go into part 4 just
Yeah,
fine with no
yeah.
problem.
Especially if they're gonna do the. It seems like they're doing the Rocky thing where they recap for 10 minutes
Yeah,
before each movie. So
yeah,
you
yeah.
could actually start probably any movie and go from there.
I'm
But
not
I
sure
don't
if they
know.
do
I've
that in
only seen
part
the
3.
first 3 so far.
I think they do recap it in part 3 as well, if I can remember. But I don't.
Oh yeah, they do.
Okay, so in part 4 they stopped doing that.
Oh, they do. Okay.
Yeah, I
Okay.
believe so if I remember correctly.
Awesome. That's good
Or if
then.
they do is like really condensed because those
That's
recaps
good.
drag on. It's like a whole movie.
It like gets them to become a movie. Like it gets
Yeah,
that runtime enough to qualify as a movie because they have those recaps. That's what it feels
yeah,
like.
yeah.
It's like they just added it in there to have the
It's
recaps.
honestly probably only a couple minutes, but it feels like
Yeah.
it's 10, 20 minutes.
Especially after you just watched it, you're like, I just watched this. So,
Oh yeah.
but
Yeah.
we want to know from you guys out there. Have you guys seen Friday the 13th Part 2? Are you a big fan? Do you think it's better than the original? Let us know your comments below. And Paul, where can people find you on the internet?
Right here. Every day you put these videos out.
Yes.
Twin Flicks on YouTube. If you're watching these videos, you already watched the first one probably, so you already know I do Blu-ray 4K comparison reviews. I have interviews with different filmmakers on there as well, and reviews. And we're going to be doing that Scorsese
very soon. Yep.
5 movies. And then on social media, I think it's Paul_Twin Flicks, and TikTok is the one you want to go to because that's where I'm more active, and that's Twin_Flicks.
TikTok for the after night stuff, guys, and links are in the description. And thank you guys so much for watching. Peace out.
Later, guys.
And this is for Mother.